She came in, and this was a rather interesting moment in the thing. This deputy actually helped her throughout this whole ordeal, and apparently he's going to make sure that the things go the way they're supposed to, as I will get into. And of course, Field McConnell had arrived just before she did. And those of you who watched the show, he went over to a bench right next to me, but it's kind of a V-shaped wall, so we couldn't see each other. But I could hear every word that Field McConnell said. And one of the things I heard was that he is not happy at all with Tim Holmseth, and I get the indication that he is not interested in ever seeing Tim Holmseth again. So I would suspect that we're going to be watching and see if Field does anything about the damage that Tim Holmseth has done to him. There's a Zoom video running around there on the internet that people can watch. The hearing was 22 minutes long. I did the best I could to keep up with it. The audio in the courthouse is terrible, as they generally are in these things, but because it went over Zoom, it was crystal clear. Now, I've been told that Randy Holmseth, here we go with that again, watched that quote-unquote interesting person who has that blog was in there, Mr. T, and some other notables from the other side of the hill. And so that's an interesting thing that you should check out. I'm not going to give who did it because I found out from the court you're not supposed to record those things, so you got to be a little careful here. But anyway, enough of that. Now, the highlight of the hearing was Kim Picassio's impact statement. And I'll tell you, she really let loose on Field McConnell. And you had to be there in person to really witness one of the most emotional victim impact statements I have watched in a long time. And I got to do it in person. There's a lot of dynamics you get from personally being in the courthouse rather than seeing what is on a Zoom where the camera is usually fixed on the judge himself. The way the hearing started is first, Field McConnell and his attorney showed up, and they went around. The elevator is kind of a strange thing. The bank of elevators is dead center in this room, and you can either come off the elevator and turn right towards me, which Kim did when she came up, or you can go to the left like Field did with his attorney, and they walked around all the way around behind the bank of elevators and came out to this door. And they walked up to the door. They were going to go straight in, but they hadn't unlocked the door yet. So they went and sat down on a bench that was around the... Oh, okay, Serco. Thank you for doing that. But anyway, they sat down, and they were quite chatty, and that's where I was picking up bits and pieces. They were talking about airplanes and an airport and how the Field drove down from somewhere. Interesting shoes he's got on, by the way. But in the midst of that, they were talking about, because they were going over the terms of the probation, or the plea, and it came right out that he is not in the least interested in talking to Tim Holmseth again. And so, after a while, they opened up the courtroom, and Field and his attorney went in, and then Kim went in, and I went in. I shut down the broadcast and went in. And Kim and the deputy sat in the back of the courtroom to my right, across the other side of the courtroom. I sat over on the left, and sat over there with spectators that were on that side, plus other people that had court business. And the judge did a number of Zoom calls before Field's hearing, and there was one other in-person hearing that was relatively brief. They continued that they did a lot of continuing until the month of October. And then Field case came up, and there was a little bit of discussion about that, and the judge was saying that you have agreed and blah, 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 and all that. And then after they had this little meeting, a few things came up, and before the formal proceedings started, and Field McConnell and his attorney left the courtroom, to have a discussion and then came back. And when I finally listened to Dr. Fieldcourt was not at the or Feelgood was not in court. There were there were very few people there to begin with, but nobody was there that had anything to do with Field McConnell except me, Kim, the detective, and some guy that had something to do with his probation. But anyway, so after a while, the Field McConnell, the attorney, and this other guy came back, and apparently they had worked everything out when it came to the parole. If you listen to the Zoom hearing, you're going to understand why Field and the lawyer had left. They had to work out how the probation was going to work, and that right there told me that this was going the way I thought it would. And so they swore Field McConnell in. They asked him a couple questions and so on and so forth, and then the judge went over that that if it had gone to trial, he was facing 5 years in prison for a felony, and that the defense and the prosecution had negotiated a plea agreement where he would be potentially charged with 2 counts of violating an order of protection. And so they went through all that, and the judge did adjudicate him guilty. The judge told Field McConnell that he has to turn over all his firearms to the sheriff in Pierce County. That includes any guns in his possession or any guns that he owns that is registered to him that are not on the premises. So if he had given his guns to anybody else, he has to get those guns to the sheriff. So if he gave who the hell's ABC, by the way? He has to give all guns and ammunition, no matter where they're at, that he owns, to the sheriff. And apparently they have a list of all the guns. He is not allowed on the internet for the duration of the probation. He cannot repeat his threats against Kim, talk about Kim, mention her name at all. He can't do any show. There's one YouTube channel that's left on the internet that he and his lawyer must get taken down. The judge was emphatic about that. And one thing the judge was emphatic about that came up both during the discussion before the formal hearing and during the formal hearing is he cannot have any contact with Timothy Homestead. Not at all. And he can't use email or anything on the internet to persuade people to cause harm to Kim Ocasio. And as part of his supervised probation, he has to give a list of anyone that he is going to be contacting, and he must go to the probation officer that will be handling him. If he needs to talk to somebody else on the internet, he has to give that information to the probation officer and then get permission to contact that individual or what have you. He is going to have any electronic media, be it a computer or a telephone, cell phone, monitored at all times. He is subject to be visited by his probation officer without warning, day or night. So they could just come in, knock on the door, and inspect the premises, inspect his computers, all of that. He has to pay court expenses.
We all got to follow the rules, especially for that. All right, will that work for you, State, as well?
Yes, sir.
All right, Ms. McConnell, thank you for your patience in this process. Can I have you raise your right hand and swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, get your hand down. Can I have you state your full name and spell your full name for the record, please?
Your full name.
Between my mask and my accent, Mr. McConnell, it's a miracle anybody can understand me sometimes. No problem. I'll keep my voice up.
Field, F-I-E-L-D, McConnell, M-C-C-O-N-N-E-L-L.
Welcome again, Mr. McConnell. How old are you?
71.
All right. And how far did you go in school?
Got a BS from the Naval Academy.
All right. Well, I think it's fair for me to assume that you can read, write, speak, and understand the English language with no problem.
I speak it very well, thank you.
Yes, you do. All right. Are you presently under the influence of any drugs, alcohol, medications, anything at all like that that's interfering with your ability to think clearly, make good decisions on your own behalf, communicate with your attorney, and fully participate here today?
Yeah, I take no medications and we communicate very well.
Okay. You're not under the influence at all at this time. Is that correct? Under the influence?
No.
Okay.
I took one aspirin this morning.
All right. And may I safely assume that is not interfering with your ability to understand these proceedings?
I understand.
All right. Have you ever been treated for any mental illness?
Have you been treated for any mental illness?
No, I have not.
He does have a hearing issue here, though.
That's not a problem. All right, Mr. McConnell, in this case, this being case number 19-14044 CF10A, for the moment, you're charged with one count of aggravated stalking. That's third-degree felony with a maximum penalty of 5 years in Florida State Prison. However, it's my understanding that your attorney, in negotiations with the state attorney, have agreed to recommend a change of charge to 2 counts of misdemeanor violation of an injunction as described in Florida Statute 741.31, those both being misdemeanors of the first degree, each with a maximum penalty of 364 days in the county jail. Further, the Senate's recommendation agreed to between your attorney and the state attorney would be that on each count, you would be placed on 12 months of probation. Each count would be consecutive, meaning you got to finish one before the second one starts, for a total of 24 months of supervision. You're going to be allowed to transfer your supervision to the state of Wisconsin, so you don't have to remain here in Florida. You'd be specifically ordered not to have any contact, direct or indirect, with Kim Pacasio or Timothy Holmseth. You would be ordered not to maintain any social media accounts while you're on supervision. You're not to make any reference to Ms. Pacasio in any videos. You're to prepare a letter of apology to Ms. Pacasio. And then there is a separate written plea agreement of 2 pages with what appears to be your signature on the second page. Is that indeed your signature, Mr. McConnell?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right. This agreement recites the sentencing information I've already given to you today. Further provides that you're going to be allowed to maintain email and internet access. You're going to be able to use the internet for your personal and daily living activities. You're going to provide probation with a list of anyone that's going to be receiving email communications from you, and specifically including family and friends. You're not going to communicate any messages by any means to incite third parties to harass or harm Ms. Pacasio. You're going to have the right to modify that contact list of people that you're communicating with at any time. You've got to make sure you're clear, and probation is aware of it in advance. You're not going to possess any firearms or ammunition. Any that you possess now, you're going to turn over to law enforcement while you're on supervision. And specifically, it's going to be the sheriff of Pierce County, Wisconsin. Ms. Pacasio, once she receives your letter of apology, is not going to disseminate that letter to anyone other than her husband and office staff. Will not redisclose that document to anyone else after the fact. Mr. McConnell, you're going to agree to request, with the assistance of your attorney, that you two take down the channel known as the report. And you're going to use all available legal methods to effectuate that request and see that it gets done. Is that a correct recitation of the parties' agreement? Ms. Friedman?
Yes, Your Honor.
Sure. It says, Judge, the state does want to stress that the defendant is not to appear or be filmed in any internet videos.
Yeah, that's in paragraph 4 that's spelled out.
Okay, very well. Is that your understanding as well, Mr. Son?
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
Is that what you want to do, Mr. McConnell?
The part about being filmed in or appear in any videos.
Yeah, I'm happy with that decision or that definition.
Okay, how about the rest of the terms and conditions of the plea agreement? Is that what you want to do today?
Advice of my counsel, and I'm fine with it.
Good. All right. Has anyone promised you anything other than these explicit terms in exchange for your plea today?
No, sir.
Has anybody forced you, threatened you, coerced you in any way to make you come to court and enter this plea or accept the state's offer?
Absolutely not.
Okay. You don't understand, if you're not a United States citizen, your entry of a plea to these charges could have a very significant and negative impact on your status in this country. It could include everything up to your removal from the United States and your entry being permanently barred. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
Do you need any more time to discuss your rights or your options with your attorney?
You need more time to talk?
Absolutely not.
Are you satisfied with the services of your attorney?
Very much so.
I think you have every reason to be. It looks like Mr. Son's done a very good and thorough job for you in this case. All right. Anything further either party wants to make part of this record, or any other parties wish to be heard prior to sentencing and acceptance of the plea?
The victim, Ocasio,
Let's see what else. There was a bunch of stuff. But then comes the highlight, and this is what I'm going to be reading. And some of you have already seen it on the recordings that are out there.
Ocasio is here, Your Honor, and she does what she has to do.
Welcome, Ms. Pacazia.
Thank
You can step up and join the prosecutor. Can I have you raise your right hand, ma'am? You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, put your hand down. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record, please.
John Ocasio, last name is spelled Picazio.
Welcome again, Ms. Pacazia.
Thank you.
Pursuant to our Constitution, it is your absolute right to be heard prior to a material phase of this case proceeding. So what is it that you want the court to be aware of?
I'd like to make what's often referred to as a victim's impact statement. And I haven't been in this courthouse since March of 2020. This is a place that I feel very comfortable in. And I'm sure Mr. McConnell does not feel very comfortable in this courthouse. And maybe he'll never want to be here again. And that's the point of these proceedings, is for him to learn how to follow the law, follow the rules, and follow court orders. If he's told not to speak about someone and not to harass someone and not to threaten someone's life, and a court enters an order to do so, he needs to follow that order, whether it's a Florida court order, Wisconsin order, or a federal order. And with regard to Mr. McConnell, I sat there day after day after day and saw him with hundreds of thousands of followers on a YouTube channel that was misleading the public to believe that Q existed, that Mr. McConnell was all wrapped up in the QAnon movement, that he was a leader, that he knew Donald Trump. He would show people fake phone calls that he had just spoken to Donald Trump, making all of his followers not only fall in love with him, but misled to believe that he was somehow leading some secret internal governmental agency that was completely made up for donations on the internet. And they all had to have a fall guy, I guess someone to attack, in order to get more hits and more money. And that was me, a Democratic election lawyer, someone who has done briefs and worked for the ACLU. And I would support your freedoms of speech. I would be in court the first one to protect what you have to say, sir. Even now, you should be able to speak freely. Those freedoms have limitations. They have limitations under the law. And your words, when backed by an army of 250,000 devout followers who pray to you, who call you sir, when you're telling them that I'm a child trafficker, that I eat children, that I do these horrible things in the world, they want to come and kill me. And so just to make sure they did, you read my phone number, my address over and over and over again. You told them to go take me in custody. I have 3 children, sir. I'm a Christian too. I have 3 children in this town. They all went to Christian schools. You told people that I starved my children to death. Well, one of them graduated from a Christian school and went to Auburn University for Aerospace Engineering. Another one went to American University. Another one's still in a Christian school here, and it's her birthday, and I'd like to leave here and go get her learner's permit with her. It's a matter of, I read a document, you had renounced your American citizenship in a court, filing a sovereign citizen affidavit, declaring that the court did not have jurisdiction over you. You use sovereign citizen legal counsel. Even in this case, you finally have hired competent counsel to get you out of trouble. It's the only person to help you. And one of your sovereign citizen legal counsel is not even here with us anymore because one of your followers murdered him. They're dangerous people, and speech can cause dangerous things to people. And I don't like sitting in my law office defending custody cases and women in distress. I work pro bono hours, 10% of my workload a year. And anyone that works for me is dedicated to legal aid or women in distress legal counsel. That's a rule in my office. And in this particular courthouse on the 5th floor in the other building, that's now knocked down, in 1990, as a college student, I volunteered and they gave us a closet. I worked for Women in Distress as a volunteer. They gave us a closet on the 5th floor. And I helped women day after day after day in between my college classes fill out petitions for protection for them and their children. So you chose to attack one of the very people that is there defending the rights of women and abused children all day long, many times for free. Not giving money to these organizations, but feet on the ground, and making my staff do so as well. That's who you decided to attack. Sitting in my office and had cops come, guns drawn, at 5:30 at night. Had to give me an escort home. Watch my children couldn't even have people spend the night. My housekeeper couldn't come the next day because the cops were guarding my house from you and your people. You told everyone that they were going to come. You said the Marines were going to come and shoot me 7 times in the head. And when I showed up at the courthouse, they'd come out from the trees and get me. You told me I was going to be dead by your people and that the Marines were coming together. I don't see any Marines here, sir. Right? What I see is a judge who's just sentenced you. Because you need to learn to follow the rules. You're a Marine. You follow the rules there, you need to follow the rules down. You need to take those followers that you have and change it to something good. I remember countless times you, and finishing up, you would preach the Bible on your show in between death threats to me and secret coded messages to your followers, making sure that everyone believed that the person you were talking to on the phone was John F. Kennedy Jr., who died in a plane crash 15 years ago. And that you were talking to President Trump.
Please make sure all cell phones are put away.
None of that was true. It was fake to mislead your people, your followers, to donate money to you. So I'm going to conclude here that you like to preach from the Bible while giving me death threats. I'm going to preach from the Bible and not give you a death threat, but I'd like you to listen. This is Proverbs 6:16 through 19. And it says, there are 6 things the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him. Haughty eyes, prideful eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush into evil, and a false witness who pours out lies, and a person who stirs up conflict in the community. Sir, I hope you've learned a lesson. This court has jurisdiction over you and over me. You're the one sitting here. We have to follow the law. That's the right thing to do if you're a patriot. Thank you, Honor.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Padian.
Statement, she devotes 10% of her practice hours to pro bono work, which is how she got mixed up with the Cummings case to begin with. She went up there pro bono in an attempt to get custody back to a mother of her remaining children while Haley Cummings was still missing. And it turned out that she got into a hornet's nest that she wasn't aware of. And, you know, the rest is history. And I'll post for Mr. Hanley. And it reads like this. Whistleblower Captain Phil McConnell is a free man. There is a report stating that he pled guilty, was sentenced to 2 years probation. When I queried him his response was, quote, "No, I pleaded no contest. I am as free as a bird, and my ankle bracelet was removed 4 months ago." This is absolutely false. Anybody that listens to the recording will see that the judge adjudicated him guilty of 2 misdemeanor counts. When you are put on probation, that is because you have been found guilty. And I knew this was going to happen, that we're going to start seeing these know-it-alls come out here and say, "Oh, no, this didn't happen." Well, it did. And in 48 hours, I will have the ability to get the paperwork. I was told by the clerk of the court, I went down personally after the court and talked to the clerk of the court, and she said it will take 48 hours for all this to be on the record. And so it'll go up there. I'll do a show on it as soon as I get it, and it spells out exactly what Field McConnell is required to do. Yes, he's free as a bird, but it's my understanding, and I'm waiting to confirm this, that he is restricted where he can go within the state of Wisconsin. I'm not sure if he can leave the state of Wisconsin or even leave Pierce County, but he is restricted on his movements. He is subject to be monitored, and he is having his firearms and ammunition taken away. So whoever this Dan person is just another smirky kirky that thinks they know everything, but they don't. And he better pray that he's lying about being in contact with Field McConnell, because if he has been in contact with Field McConnell has already violated his probation, and he can be thrown right back in the clink. So this particular comment is going to be forwarded. The person that sent this to me said that they're going to forward it, and you know who you are, to Kim and possibly even the court, because Field McConnell cannot have contact with people like this Dan person. That is my understanding, CJ.
Anything further for the record at this stage, either party?
No.
No, Judge, just we spent a lot of time working out this negotiation, and Mr. McConnell believes it's in his best interest to accept this form.
Understood. All right, Mr. McConnell, as to the amended charges and the amended information the court holds now, in lieu of the 1 3rd-degree felony, the 2 first-degree misdemeanors of violation of an injunction as described in Florida statute 741.31. How do you plead? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest?
No contest.
The court is going to accept no contest plea. On counts 1 and 2, adjudicate you guilty, place you on probation for a period of 12 months, consecutively per count, for a total of 24 months supervision. You're to have no contact, direct or indirect, with Ms. Pazio or Timothy Homestead. You're going to be allowed to transfer your probation to the state of Wisconsin. You're not to maintain any social media accounts while you're on probation. You're not to make reference to Ms. Pazio in any future videos. You're to complete a letter of apology to Ms. Pazio. We're not going to make reference to Ms. Pazio in any videos or produce, appear, or be filmed in any YouTube or internet videos, or open or access any social media account sites, including Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. You will be allowed to use email and internet access for your personal use and daily living activities. However, you're going to first have to provide your probation officer with a list of those people, including your family and friends, with whom you're going to be communicating and contacting by email. You shall not communicate any messages by any means to incite third parties to harass or harm Ms. Pacazio. You're going to have the right to modify that contact list at any time you want, but you need to do it in advance to make sure it is in writing to probation before you send any messages by electronic means. You're not going to possess any firearms or ammunition. Any firearms or ammunition you currently have in your possession are going to be turned over to the sheriff of Pierce County, Wisconsin, for safekeeping while you're on supervision. as I said earlier, you're going to prepare a letter of apology to Ms. Pacazio through your attorney. Ms. Pacazio has agreed not to disseminate this letter to anyone other than her husband and her office staff, all of whom are going to be prohibited from redisclosing that document further. Finally, you're going to agree to request, with the assistance of your attorney, that you two take down content known as the report. If your request is not immediately honored, then you, through your attorney, are going to employ all available legal means to see that YouTube does, in fact, take the report down. You're responsible for court costs per statute. Anything further stated offense?
No.
The only thing, just for clarification, we need to start with probation here, or not, that should cover us for the felony probation and not have to go across the street to misdemeanor.
Correct. You should be able to complete all the Florida business while you're here in the courtroom. I think that's going to be a lot cleaner there. They can then make the request to Wisconsin, and I wish you good luck, Mr. McConnell. Hopefully, you'll never need to come back to this courtroom. I wish you good luck.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Ms. Pacazio.
Thank you, sir.
Sir.
Mr. Williams wants to say.
Thank you. Don't let me forget.